What if thriving wasn't about getting life perfect?
but learning to find peace and purpose right in the mess.
I'm Kelsey.
And I'm Tom, and we walked away from the version of life that looked right to build one that feels alive.
We'll talk about the beauty and the struggle, from parenting and marriage to faith, well-being and travel.
This is The Whole of Us.
Hey, you. How you doing?
Welcome.
Welcome.
A little bit of a content disclaimer before we start talking this morning. Today we are going to be talking about postnatal depression and some emotional distress. We won't share anything too graphic, but just be conscious of your heart and your needs and where you're at. We know that this can be quite a triggering conversation for people. So
Take your time.
take your time.
Listen now or listen later or not at all. That's
Yeah.
okay.
Skip along.
Yeah. And I guess a big thing too, we're not here to criticize or villainize anybody in this process or in journeys that we go on. We're just sharing our experience.
Or even give medical advice. We're just sharing our experience
Yeah.
and how it's affected us and how there is hope in something like this.
Totally. And one of the most beautiful things we've found as we share time with people around the world is stories bring life.
Yes.
Like it gives us context and understanding and, as you said, hope.
And makes us feel less alone.
Yeah.
And I think I'm curious about you, the listeners, how you experience this episode and whether it's made you think differently about if you've got kids, your season of having young children, or if you're considering having kids, what it, I don't
Could
know,
be
how,
a-
yeah,
Yeah. I mean, and that's a beautiful launching point to jump off of.
we do that. So this is a 2-part series. We're going to talk more from a mother perspective and bounce back and forth. And then the next episode will be more from the father's perspective,
It's
which
gonna
is
be great fun.
yeah, we're sort of interviewing each other. So this is fun.
It is.
Okay.
So, look, first question I wanted to ask you is having kids young, we were still working out our identity in many ways. Like we were working out who we were as we were getting married. And so was there any preconceived idea that you had or thoughts or feelings, or if you think back to then, how did you want to be as a mum? Or how did you think it would change who you were?
I remember writing that I wanted a baby so I didn't feel so alone. Like,
Wow.
yeah, early on, just wanting a friend. I don't think I ever felt a lot of purpose in anything. And I was really hopeful that motherhood would be that thing for me. I did nursing because I didn't know what else to do. And I loved emergency nursing, but it was also, the shift work was difficult. The
Yeah.
constant trauma and feed of adrenaline took a number on my body.
Yep.
And so I think as we were planning future life, it just made sense. My mother was a stay-at-home mum. Your mum had been a stay-at-home mum. I sort of felt like we were waiting around to sort of, I mean, in the 18 months we'd known each other, waiting around for me to find my identity and really find purpose in motherhood. So that was probably as far as it really went. I just knew that I would have this friend to adventure with life with while you were at work and I would be at home. And if I'm honest, maybe it was this hope that this thing would bring me alive, that somehow in motherhood I would find deep identity and it would bring me a lot of joy.
Wow.
It was pretty high stakes, actually.
I was going to say
We've not really talked about this.
No,
Yeah.
that's a huge emotion to carry in, and yeah, I mean, I can see both sides there of then that putting so much pressure on yourself to show up and to find identity in that
Yes.
space, and also
And be good at it
yeah,
because there's no backup plan.
no,
There's
you
nothing else I want to
only
do.
get one go with these kids.
Well, but it was also that in terms of jobs or, I'm the stay-at-home mum, like that's the plan.
Yeah. And I mean, the flip side of that as well is like the amount of pressure that then puts on kids to meet that identity
Totally.
and to be that person who stops you feeling alone.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know if I would have said then that it was going to stop me being alone, but I think now when I look through my journals, the theme is I'm going to have a friend with me.
Yeah.
So it just, it's interesting.
Yeah. Curious. So how do you think we then set ourselves up for having kids? Because in my mind, remembering back to that season of time, I was studying, you were working a few shifts a week as a nurse, and we just kind of decided to stop not trying, but we weren't specifically trying for a baby either.
Yeah. I mean, this episode, we're not really going to go into how the labor and the stuff
No.
went, but it was sort of, I didn't expect to be able to fall pregnant easily. My past was quite traumatic. And so I just thought I would have a lot of difficulty.
Yeah.
And then we got pregnant pretty quickly.
Yeah.
And it was shock, and sort of like that train had just started and well, we're on it now.
That's it.
I remember being pregnant and not wanting to talk about it. Your mother used to hide presents that she wanted to give me because she knew I just did not want to know or think about it. And so which was quite fascinating when you think back to that time. There were none of our friends were having babies. They were getting married and waiting and traveling and doing all the things. And so it was sort of a bit of an isolating time. We were in between communities as well because of your study and me working. We didn't have a lot of money. So there wasn't, house I was working on or doing crafts around the home. So I went, go.
Oh, and I was just thinking, I don't, to be honest, remember having many conversations with you about what life was going to be like once we had kids.
We didn't really dream a lot about what,
No.
or like structure or think about our values as a family and what we wanted it to look like. And maybe that's something we could have done that would have helped a lot. At the same time, there is a natural just flowing with it.
Absolutely.
And trying to reduce expectation was sort of helpful and unhelpful in some ways, maybe.
Yeah, totally. Well, I think you're looking at the two extremes there. You can be super intentional and articulate about all the different things and then trying to hit all the goals.
Well,
or you can just let it be and let it flow. And there's beauty in both. There's like a value in well articulating things and then releasing it and going, and we're going to show up as well as we can.
Totally. I'd seen a lot of families or friends that were older than us who were having kids. And I didn't like it. I didn't like how it looked. We were outdoor and adventurous and young, and we did have dreams. We just didn't have specific kid dreams.
Yes.
So it was more this concept of they were just going to join in our life and we would continue on. But I knew what I didn't want, and I didn't want to be claustrophobically held to nap times and dictated to by a child, and I wanted it to be a lot more free-flowing. I knew there was great capacity in you and I to just get on and do things.
Yeah.
So we loved to hike and we loved to travel even back then. So I just didn't want our whole life to get really small. I still wanted to do things.
Totally. I think
that was it.
Yeah, I remember articulating that with you and having those conversations. And it's interesting looking at our families of origin and kind of going, there was such a freedom, I felt.
Yeah, both of our families moved a lot.
Yeah.
And we're in lots of different houses. Your family moved countries a lot.
Yeah.
So we saw them just sort of get on with it.
Yeah, totally.
So I think then when we
resilient.
had the baby and you went back to work after a week.
Yeah.
And like I said earlier, I was afraid of what having a child was going to do to me. At the same time, I was hopeful of what it would do to me. It would give me purpose and identity, but afraid in the sense of that I would be trapped by a child. And so when they came, and I had pretty much very minimal experience with children, whereas you'd grown up with, you know.
The oldest of 4, and so always having babies around, and a mum who's an early education teacher, so there was literally baby groups at our house.
Yeah, that was not my experience at all. I remember having the baby and, you go home the next day and you're just sort of thinking, how do I know if this thing...
It is a wild experience.
Knows... Like, how do I know when to feed it? How do I know when it's hungry? Like, when's its nappies wet? It just was so shocking. But I was on my hormones, I was on such a peak. I remember after we had Isla, a friend came over who was about to have a baby in a couple of weeks. And she came over and I was like, oh my gosh, this experience is going to be so fun. I was absolutely pumping her up for it.
That was as soon as you walked up to the ward off birth suite, you were just bouncing to all the nurses.
Yeah, your sister came in on like little tiptoes thinking she'd just gently ask, how are you going? And I was like, Hannah, it was amazing.
And it was a beautiful experience. So that first birth it felt like such teamwork between us. And
still hurt. But yes, absolutely. I felt very strong mentally. But I think once we were home, life went on. You went back to work. We didn't have huge communities. So in that year we moved. Actually, we moved 2 weeks before Isla was born or something. It was very, very
Yeah.
quick because when I was in labor, you were still renovating and painting walls. And I was like, okay, we're going to go now. And you're like, I've got one more wall to finish. But we had an established community.
Yeah.
So it was those early days. And praise God, we found this incredible church around the corner and a mother's group. And I remember walking in and suddenly there were all these people who've just had babies.
All similar ages.
We have lifelong friends from that group.
Yeah.
Our best friends we found in that group.
Yeah.
But so that was Isla. I did have some postnatal depression with her.
How would you define that difference between depression that you'd experienced previously, because you'd walked through PTSD and other sort of mental health challenges, and then looking at what postnatal depression looked like? How would you look at the difference between the two?
It's interesting because with Isla, it felt very mild. It felt low. I felt angry. I did have the mood swings. That had probably also been part of my PTSD and part of our life of challenges of mental health and trauma that I had been through. So it didn't feel too different. It just felt like the peak of the excitement and the hormones of finding out having a baby. Then you have the baby and you name it and all the presents that came. I loved all that. And the part, the attention felt beautiful and such a high. And then as that drops off and normal life
Time
kicks
goes
in
by.
And the monotony of wiping food off the floor and cleaning the house and feeling purposeless in that, despite knowing that, man, children and raising children has to be the most incredible purpose. And that's what everyone's telling you. I didn't love it. I didn't enjoy it. I found it really hard and I felt very lonely because although I had these awesome play groups and things that I was a part of, it took so much energy out of me. And I'd come home in those afternoons before you get home late from work. It was just so slow. And every mother out there understands how much they just desperately want their husband to get home.
Yeah.
So I think there was a normal probably dip. I look back now and wonder, you're faced with your own childhood when you have children and you're faced with pretty deep identity questions about what you want from life, and a lot of guilt and shame sneaks in because you wanted this child, and at least for me it was going to fulfill my purpose, and suddenly we were going to be this team and living life, and I didn't find that. I felt more confusion because the thing that I was hoping and holding on to was not what I thought it was going to be.
Yeah.
And then I remember we decided to have another baby.
Well, all our friends got pregnant, and so we went, well, we may as well as well.
Well, we'll try. You never know. You have one baby and you hear about secondary infertility. And so we thought, let's just try again. And it was pretty quick as well.
Yeah.
And
so there was 2 years almost exactly between the two girls being born.
And that labor went a bit differently. And I think it just set me up to probably have never really recovered from postnatal beforehand, to probably perinatal anxiety and depression when I look back, because my journal and the thoughts I was having at that time were pretty dark.
Which it's interesting. It's so easy to look at you and the way you show up with people around, and people wouldn't know.
Yeah, I am an introvert, but when
a social extrovert.
And I love people. I love it once I'm there, but I have a lot of anxiety going and being around people. It can be very overwhelming, and I think a lot of people relate to that. But most of it's my inner critic that I've worked so hard on the last few years.
Yeah.
But when Leslie was born, it just amped things up.
Yeah. Well, I guess for context there as well, that birth wasn't just a little bit different. It was radically different. I mean, physically, you were still...
Physically not so bad, but mentally, the birth, I just had tapped out. And when I had her, they say, you want to hold the baby now? And I said, no, I don't want to hold her.
Yeah.
Like, it was very, very different compared to with Isla. I'm just like, it was just this massive high. So I didn't have the high.
Yeah.
But I think what started to turn, so we had the baby, you went back to work a week later, and I'm with 2 kids at home. And it's more more of the same, but now there's just less downtime, right?
Yes.
And those years are just hard. They are hard because you're sleep deprived, which is a massive
That's
contributor
one of the biggest,
to PND.
Yeah, exactly. Biggest risk factors.
The hormone ups and downs, which I definitely had.
The
Plus,
physical recovery.
Yeah, previous depression and things like that.
So what I'm hearing is saying, like, postnatal and perinatal depression and anxiety, it's not one thing. It's not that you look at a person and go, oh, they're going to have that.
There are definite indicators for people who are higher risk.
Yeah.
And I think, given my history, it made sense. And I do think sometimes just a hormonal imbalance is enough to send you into
that
this.
and
It's
some
full
sleep
chemical.
deprivation.
Totally. But in general, it's multifactorial.
Yeah.
And I think I've struggled hearing
other people's experience.
Yeah, maybe because for a long time it was life or death for me.
Yeah.
And yet I am aware that is such a challenging season. And even if you don't, make it up to a psychiatric unit, it still really matters. And I think the lack of village, the lack of community and support has a huge part to play. Our own individual expectations and standards and performance and perfectionism had a massive part to play. So yes, I believe it's many, and research backs that up, that it's multifactorial.
Totally. So I guess that in between, and when I say in between time, I mean it was the time from Leslie's birth to when things got really bad. It was this gradual degradation of
it was like I was wearing out.
And
I mean, yes, but I think very early on when I look back, I had postnatal depression, but it wasn't. I remember yelling at you one night being like, don't you dare say I have postnatal depression. Like, it was really hard to accept and really difficult to, I think finding the balance between what's just hard in life and we get to still show up and work through it versus there's my capacity, we've passed it.
Yeah.
And that was really hard to identify for me because I was somebody who could a lot of the time just push through things I had in my past. And I think that was hard to identify. I know that my sleep, even when I had opportunity to sleep, the anxiety was just so bad. And I would find myself, rocking on like crouched down in the cupboard, just rocking at night, crying while everyone's asleep and the house is dark. And it was, it progressed and got worse and worse. And until one day it just got really, really bad.
Well, I just want to ask, do you think there was a fear of what a postnatal depression diagnosis would mean?
I think it would feel like I'd failed.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I understand that it's combination of things, but this overwhelming feeling that if I succumb to this, identify this and accept that this is something happening.
That you haven't tried hard enough.
Yeah, I haven't tried hard enough. And part of that is there's all these strategies and all these medications you can take and the doctors you need to see.
CBT therapy you can do.
Totally. And the reality is it was too much all at once.
Yeah.
There were things that I look back that would have been super helpful to do. But when you're in that, you have just going to an appointment feels too overwhelming. Even sitting with a counselor and processing emotion feels painful and difficult. Even going on medication's difficult because there's side effects and you feel unwell. And so there is no quick fix.
Yeah.
And so potentially by saying this is now what I am accepting and experiencing, then what?
Yeah.
And knowing that it was not going to be a quick fix and then I would still have all this time of healing that I need to do.
Yeah.
And I just felt angry at that. Probably my biggest symptom was anger.
Yeah.
Wouldn't you say?
Yeah.
Raging and anger and a lot of other symptoms, irrational thinking and unsafe behavior and things like that. But that day that it just went south was when I realized that.
So talk me through that. What actually happened?
Yeah, I think the tipping point was the stinking Thermomix. I did a pumpkin soup. And this has happened to me so many times since this experience. I don't know what it is with pumpkin soup, but there's clearly an issue around it for me. But yeah, I was putting pumpkin soup. Isla was 2, she was 2.5 at the time. I just remember she needed things and wanted things. And Alessia
Totally.
just didn't sleep very well. So she was crying in her cot. And it's like that shark music, right? Like you feel out of body. Suddenly the walls start closing in. I turned the Thermomix on and all the pumpkin, like the lid flew off and pumpkin soup
Went all over the
everywhere,
pantry.
like everywhere. And I just lost it. And I went into Alessia and I thought, I don't want to give specifics on the podcast, but I remember thinking we are not safe any longer. So I called your mum up and I said, you have to come and get me and the girls. And she came and picked me up, and we then lived with her, and
For the better part of 6 months.
6 months we initially went to the doctors and we got a plan happening, and I ended up in a psychiatric unit. It was a mothers and bubs unit.
Yep.
It cost us $10,000 for that week. We could not afford that. So I had to self-discharge, and then we lived with your parents while I did outpatients.
Yeah.
Therapy with other mothers. And just that experience was so harrowing. Going into a psych unit felt so out of control, so overwhelming, again, out-of-body experiences.
Yeah.
It is very much set up to protect you and the staff that are working there. So, when you go in, you're checked every 15 minutes, depending on how severe you are. That's all through the night.
Yep.
Just someone being in your space that much is a lot.
They go through all your bags.
Yeah,
all your
2 nurses
belongings.
come in, they go through everything to make sure there's nothing that can hurt anybody. And all of that was just this, what is happening to me right now? And not only that, but there is like complexities in the unit. Like there's a cool kids group in the psych ward and the mothers group. And I was not in it. And like the people who were staying there longer, obviously they become friends. But some of the women were so sick. And so, but you don't really understand, because people can look so normal on the outside, but inside they're really unwell. And there was one lady who I became really good friends with. And then I realized she was really unwell. She'd been stealing from everybody. And so then it was just like its own sort of world. Yeah. I also had a baby that was a lot older than everybody else's. So a lot of the women in there had newborns.
Yeah, or like 6 to 12 weeks old.
Alessia was 6-7 months.
7-8 months, yeah.
It meant when she cried, nobody else could settle her because she wanted me. She had enough awareness. And yeah, it was brutal. I was put on so many different medications. And I do think going there saved my life. If nothing else, for the fact I realized how ill I was.
Yeah.
And it gave some understanding to some people around us.
Yeah.
But in my opinion, there were issues. Like I didn't ever have like a blood test, or there wasn't this more complex care. It was, this is the medication for you.
And if you don't want to take that, then.
Yeah. It's nuanced on this conversation to talk about, because I wouldn't want to turn people off from seeking help.
No.
And it's really important that it's brave to seek the help you need for you, your family, and your kids.
And there are moments in time where things reach that severity where you need a safe place to be.
Totally. So
and
that was
I
right.
think that's where I first heard the term postnatal psychosis floated. And we'll talk about this more in the next episode, but for me, looking at you, it was like, okay, yeah, she's struggling with depression, but that's something that she's struggled with for a long time, and she's doing okay. But the more your thinking got totally irrational, you were making decisions that just didn't make any sense. And like I say, that yours and the girls' safety was coming into question more and more. That's like a massive defining distinction between what a lot of people identify as just postnatal depression. And I think I just bring that up to articulate the point that you mentioned before of other people who had experienced postnatal depression. And it's a spectrum.
Yeah.
And it's, you can have lots of low days, and that is postnatal depression, and it is challenging, and it's really hard, and it needs the help and the community and the support to move you through it. And then it can build in severity to this point where
it can happen very quickly, but in my case, it definitely built in severity.
It did.
It was a very, very lonely time. I don't remember, you went back to work while I was in hospital with Alessia, and your mum looked after Isla, and I think my sister might have visited me once, but nobody came, and it felt Oh, just so lonely. I think the help that I was getting with you suddenly was removed because she was
Yeah.
older. And so then I actually had to do more.
Yeah.
I could no longer breastfeed her because of the medications I was on. So there was just a lot of autonomy that felt like it was being taken away. At the same time,
Yeah.
you're aware that you're not yourself.
So you're not actually able to make the right decisions or do.
Well, you don't think that at the time. You're very like, this is what I want and need to do. But it's also trusting that people have your best interest at heart.
Yeah.
And I felt like through a lot of the journey, it's like when you go to your checkup, they check your kids, but I don't remember anyone checking me really. They'd say, are you okay? Yeah.
Yeah.
Like there's not this, there might be now, but when I was going through that didn't, it felt like the baby now, it was all about the baby and which as it should be, it's important, but there was this lack of seeing the mother.
Yeah.
And I think across, just in general, women have such an identity crisis,
Yeah.
not crisis always. It can be beautiful. But for me, purpose, identity, role in life, income stresses, marriage stresses, like it's a huge thing when you have kids.
Totally. And we get treated in isolation. And I think this is coming back to one of the broader themes that we're finding ourselves coming back to, which is isolation doesn't work, but family teams do.
Yeah. I can't wait to talk about that on a podcast because it has changed everything in our life and brought so much joy to our family.
And you can see how medicine's view of kind of pathologizing things and looking at things in isolation actually creates more complexity a lot of the time.
Yeah.
Because it misses the contextualized points and misses the broader community and team within which that person is.
Which is a lot of the work you do. So I think in general, hopefully we're moving more towards that way of thinking as a society. But certainly in some of these cases, it's felt just this is my way of doing it. This is what you have to do, full stop.
Yeah.
And I would say it was pretty traumatic going into a psych hospital, if I'm honest. It felt
Yes.
it was a lot. At the same time, did it save my life? I think it might have. So
And like I said, I think your point of it removed your autonomy was probably one of the biggest things. And something that we've
as a hard thing. Yeah.
Yeah. One of the biggest things we've learned through the trauma therapy work we've done is that autonomy is one of the biggest things that builds safety. And the more control we feel we have over our lives, and the more we're actually empowered and supported within that, the more we're actually able to move into health.
Yes.
And so a situation where all of that autonomy is taken away, and for a time you can understand and it makes sense. But I think the flip side of that was the empowerment to actually get you healthy again was probably the challenging thing. And even being in my parents' house for a season of time, it was really challenging. And it was
for them as well, I imagine.
Yeah, absolutely, for all of us, because to have these conversations is hard in the midst of any sort of painful situation.
You couldn't do it at the time.
No.
Well, that's very black and white, isn't it? But it would have been really challenging, and we didn't have the knowledge we have now.
Yeah, exactly. What changed after you came out of hospital?
I had a lot more compassion. When we look at something that we've been avoiding and when we accept it to be happening, it released a lot for me. It gave me permission to actually feel what I'd been so desperately trying to push away, and that resistance was actually creating more pain. So the first step of accepting, this is what's happening, created a sense of congruency because my behavior was reflected and it was all adding up in my head, right? And adding up in your head. And so there was more acceptance in you of what was happening, that this wasn't necessarily something I was choosing, though there were parts, of course, we all have choice and behavior and autonomy, but it gave credibility to how incredibly painful it was. I think then over time, because I'm reflecting on how I got better.
And that was going to be my next question, is what changed? Like what actually has moved you to a place of greater wholeness now?
The biggest thing was the last few years doing the trauma work, right? And the emotional health consulting stuff that we have individually gone after. But I didn't have that knowledge then.
No.
And I wish I did, but I think there's process and you don't know what you don't know, and there's a timing for everything. But goodness, if I had what I now carry during that time, I think it would have been remarkably different.
Yeah.
It was so slow. In fact, I look at all those years of recovery. That's the thing that was so frustrating to me. It wasn't like I left hospital, did a CBT program, and suddenly was better. This took years. So about a year, we were renovating at the time.
Yeah.
Moved back into home, and we sold our house and we moved and we bought a business up the coast. Part of that decision was we needed to redefine what the four of us looked like.
Yeah.
And redefine our family, because from the onset, it had gotten pretty fractured. Even after Isla, it was not as bad, but after Alessia, we just were all in survival mode. And I don't think I ever learned how to be mum.
Yeah.
I don't know how I would define that even now, but even in that season, it was just one foot in front of the other.
Yeah.
And felt very much like just surviving. So I think it was a slow, steady step. I know community played in. We had a group of beautiful friends at our local church who we would, they were the action fun people. And it was great because that's what brought me alive. So we would go hiking and camping, and the kids would go in backpacks, and, you know, Isla would toddle along a little bit and then you would put her on your back. So we did a lot of outside things.
Yeah.
I did a lot of journaling, and I started seeing a counselor at the time, which was helpful in some ways just to have someone to validate my experience. But we started picking back through a lot of my PTSD, and that was probably the wrong time for it now that I think about it. And it was re-traumatizing because I was just talking back through all the things that had happened to me. And yeah, it was 2 steps forward, 1 step back, sometimes 3 steps back.
Yeah.
And it just felt so clunky and slow.
Yeah.
As I understood my story more and you understood your story more, things started to completely change. And we began to, it's difficult because so much of our healing has really happened in the last few years while we've been traveling and we've been doing this deep inner work. It just felt like survival, I would say, for years.
And there's a reality that young kids, to a degree, is survival in some regards. Like the physical strain that's placed on families with young kids is huge.
I can still say, though, for those who are like, oh my gosh, I'm never having kids, or, you know, in the thick of it, I can still say, even though it was very, very dark and scary for a lot of it, it was also beautiful.
Yeah.
Children bring this joy and this playfulness and this silliness that I don't think I ever would have experienced without them. I think they challenged me to keep going. It's interesting reflecting on, you know, conversations we now have had of like having kids or not having kids. I think if we hadn't had kids, we would not. I know if we hadn't had kids, we wouldn't be where we are.
Yeah.
It has fast-tracked our healing. It has made us way less selfish. It's forced us to look at our own behavior and our priorities and decide what life do we actually want to live.
Yeah.
And to go after that with joy, because you see these kids, they laugh multiple times a day. They are silly. And that's hard for someone who's like, I don't want to be silly right now. I don't want to play. I just need to get things done. To humble yourself a little bit, to let things go and to lean into that childlike wonder. They have brought so much joy. And I think, yes, there was the postnatal depression, but I also wasn't in a great place before we had kids. They have brought the greatest amount of joy to my life, to our life.
Yeah.
They're the best decision we ever made, even though it was incredibly hard.
Yeah.
So it's interesting, you hear older people say, oh, those are the best times of your life when you've got those little babies and little kids. And, you know, time is an interesting thing because you forget the pain of it. Because I think it's you're holding both.
Yeah.
I think it's one of the hardest times of life in terms of just no other external things, just as a unit in a family. And it's also one of the most profoundly beautiful, deeply connecting, if you let it be.
Yeah.
There is a leaning into that as well.
Absolutely. And I think I'd bring that full circle around to what we started with this conversation around seeing families who either got totally absorbed by their kids or seeing families who totally just carried on with their lives and the kids were just kind of along for the ride or just pushed to the side. So they're off at childcare or doing their things. And looking at both of those models and going, no, actually, it can be a beautiful in between. It can be like adults humbling themselves to go, no, I want to get down to your level and come up
Trusting,
here as well.
yeah, trusting your kids and believing in them
Yeah,
that they
their
can come
capacity
along
is
your.
huge.
Absolutely. And we did that really well. I think
Yeah.
we definitely weren't like, no naps at home, no schedule, like
No.
let's throw it all out the window. You
We
kids
had
have to do what
schedule.
we're doing. We had something that worked for our family, and we still got out and did life. And it was harder to do
Yeah.
it with a child, but it was also the flip side of that. There's kids like, look at that. They're noticing the moon and the colors of the ground.
Yeah.
And you're leaning into that more, which is,
Yeah.
I don't know that there's another way to feel that as deeply as when you have kids. It will force you to slow down and to learn to be present. And that is such a gift.
Well, it was one of my old clients said to me years ago, life before kids was life in black and white, and life after kids is life in color.
Yeah.
And it's just, I come back to that statement so often because it's just like this, oh, that's right.
There is a choosing to see that, though.
Yeah.
And I think I learned as well that you don't necessarily need a lot of time. I was just thinking about your childcare comment, and you know, we obviously did things where I was a stay-at-home mum and you went to work, and even in those long days, I could totally miss my kids and not be present. And it is literally just sitting down on the carpet for 15 minutes and doing a colouring in together. There was this eye contact happening that was necessary. So I say it as an encouraging thing for families who might be in a difficult position.
Yeah.
I think there's always choice and priorities, yes, in this conversation and nuance. But for some people, it's just you cannot. They're single mums or whatever's going on in your life. It doesn't take a lot.
No.
It's slowing down and very small steps. Yeah.
I love having this conversation with you.
Can't wait to ask you all the questions I have.
Well, we're excited for part 2 of this. Again, this is a big conversation. It's one that I know has brought up a lot of emotion in us.
Yes.
And I know for sure will have brought up a lot of emotion in other people. So if you need support in this time, please reach out to a mental health provider or your GP or somebody who can help just walk a little bit of that journey with you. To be honest, just call a friend. Just have a little conversation. Yeah.
Just be brave and don't be alone in it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Talk
See you
soon,
next
guys.
week.